Okay, I believe we're live. So wonderful.
Fantastic.
Yeah, welcome to Tamarah's Closet today. It's an honor to have a very, very special musician guest with me today. I'm very, very honored and excited, and he's joining me from Paris. He is a world-renowned acoustic guitarist, and he's a winner of numerous awards, so many, and I'm just so excited to have him here. His most recent album is a triple CD called Encore of his live concerts, and I'm going to let him talk about that today. And it's celebrating 40 years as a musician, and it actually won him the 2014 IMA award in the live performance category. And so I want to go ahead and bring him out because I want him to have lots of time to talk, and I know he's really busy, so I want to give a warm welcome to Pierre Bensusan. Pierre, say hello, so I know you're still with me.
I am, yes. Hello, Tamarah. Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to be here with you.
Did I pronounce your last name right? How do you say your last name?
I think so. I don't mind how you pronounce it. It's okay. You know, there are many ways to pronounce it. In French, people say Bensusan, but in English, it's a little bit difficult to say that. So sometimes, you know, when you see it written, it's like Ben and Susan put together. This is what I say when people have a hard time to spell it.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, that's good. Well, I think I did. With my southern accent, it's no telling how it'll come out.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, Pierre, why don't you talk about, because you moved from, I believe it was Oran, French Algeria to Paris when you were really young. You were only 4. And but then you started studying music, classical music, I think when you were 7. And, you know, I read that your dad sort of bought you a guitar. How did that, you started with the piano though. Can you kind of give me a little bit of background on that? Or?
Sure. Well, I was born in Algeria, in North Africa, when this part of the land was part of the French Empire. And so I was born in 1957, and I moved out of Algeria to go to mainland France after the War of Independence with my family. That was in 1962. There was a piano there. We moved into the suburbs of Paris, and my 2 sisters were playing the piano. There was a piano, and obviously I was going to touch that thing. You know, it was there available like a basket of fruits. You know, it was always in my sight. And so it was quite mysterious. You know, I was listening to my sister playing classical music, and it was percussive, and it made sounds. So I was very attracted. And long story short, a couple years later, when I was 6, my father asked me once if I wanted to take piano lessons. And my father had a grocery store, and he said, one of my clients is a very nice woman, and she happened to be a piano teacher, and I proposed her to trade grocery against lessons. And so, would you be interested? And I said, of course, yes. So I remember it was a Monday. Every Monday I had a piano lesson. I went to see this woman, and I had lesson with her for 4 years. And she was, until today, my only official music teacher, because from the piano I moved on later to the guitar, and I taught myself how to play the guitar, applying the good principles that she gave me.
Yeah. Well, now your dad gave you a steel string guitar, which I don't know the difference. You'd have to explain that to me. But
yeah, well, you have.
How did you choose? How did that happen?
Sorry. Well, we had a piano. I was playing the piano, and then my teacher moved out of Paris. I mean, in the suburb. We are living in the west suburb. She moved out and went to the south of France. And for some reason, I felt like an orphan. And I was very motivated to play for her. I was really enjoying and looking forward to our lesson. I was trying to never disappoint her, and I was very, very consistent and serious about doing my homework and making sure that I would not be looked at like somebody not serious. And she just told me at the very beginning, if you want to stay with me, you have to work. You do what I'm asking you to do, otherwise I'm not interested. And so she had it was a little bit like abrupt, you know, but she made her point, and then every time we had a lesson, there was something going on which I could not really explain. You know, she taught me how to read music At the same time, I was playing. I even didn't notice that I became a sight reader. It was like so natural. Anyway, when she left, I felt that I didn't want to play the piano anymore for a while. And my parents then were a little bit, they were very low middle class. So we sold the piano. And my father was a big fan of guitar and jazz guitar, and Django Reinhardt, who was a very famous gypsy jazz guitar player, who invented an entire style of approach to the guitar and music with the Hot Club of France. And so he bought me a guitar, a very cheap steel string guitar. And so for some time, I didn't know what to do with that guitar. I didn't like it. We were not really friends. But after a while, the urge of playing music was very, very present and very strong. So I started to take that guitar and figure it out, So it was a steel string guitar. And in the world of guitar, you have acoustic guitar, you have electric guitar, you have jazz guitar, you have nylon string guitar and steel string guitar that we also call a folk guitar, acoustic guitar, American guitar. The steel string determines a certain approach, an expression, a tone, a way to touch the guitar. A nylon string would be different. It's smoother, it's softer. There is less tension, less painful on the fingers, especially on the left hand, the hand who is evolving on fretboard. And you play, let's say, for classical guitar, flamenco guitar, Latin American music, usually you play on nylon string. And on folk guitar, jazz guitar, you will mostly play on steel string, depending. There are a lot of variations. But anyways, this is how I learned how to play on steel string, and I'm still using a steel string today.
And I think that's wonderful. Well, now, do you remember? What's your first memory of music? Like, what did your parents listen to? What type of music? Or
the first memory of music, I think, is the music my mother was singing to me, like when she was trying to put me to sleep, and it was Arabic lullabies, Ladino lullabies, Jewish, Sephardic, Spanish, Algerian songs that she was singing rather in Arabic or in French or in Spanish. And so that was the first melodic things I've heard. But I've heard, sounds in general. Sounds, music is sounds are the sounds that was striking me most. Born right in the middle of the war of independence, and there were a lot of explosions, a lot of things happening, which of course explosions or like war, whatever. It was very striking and very surprising for me. It was very out of the ordinary. And so I remember the first very, very strong rhythm that I heard the first time when my parents went out. We were living in an apartment in Oran, which is the second largest city of Algeria after Algiers. And I remember my father telling my mother, "This is time." So they were going into the kitchen, were taking a lot of cooking utensils, going to the balcony, and started to knock them against each other to create a rhythm. This rhythm, ta 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 ta, along with thousands of other people on the balcony, was totally amazing. And in fact, they were shouting with rhythms, Algérie française, Algérie française, French Algeria, French Algeria. They didn't want France to go away from Algeria. Yeah, they wanted France to stay. And so in 1962, my parents left Algeria along with 1 million people. And this was the end of centuries of presence of my family and ancestors in that part of the world. So that was a very striking memory, and I still remember it today like it was yesterday.
Oh, that's amazing. I know that had to be a really trying time. That you said that your sisters played the piano too. Did your parents, either one, were they musicians at all or artists? Or
well, music is not something very extraordinary in my family. My sisters were playing. My father listened to music all the time. He used to play the trumpet when he was younger. My mother used to play the violin when she was a young girl. But music was there, like the air. It was always there, always present. It was surrounding us. It was normal. A life without music would have been something extremely abnormal and noticeable, but because music has always been there. In fact, this was my ordinary. Music has always been there. So from as young as I can remember, there was all kinds of music at home. And for me, I was not looking at that like different kinds or type of music or genres of music, but just sounds and music, like jazz, Benny Goodman, tango, classical, folk music, French chansonnic music, and gospel, and of course music America, jazz, and music coming from England. All those things, the pop and everything, you name it. It was all available. My two sisters are still a little bit older than I am, so they were listening to different kind of things. And I remember growing up together with my sisters, and I was, in fact, sharing what they were listening to, because when we moved to the suburb of Paris, we lived, the five of us, in a very small apartment. It was not that small, but now that I live in a big house in the country, it was very, very small. And we were listening to everything. I mean, one of my sisters loves the Beatles and Elton John, and the other one, she loves Sonny Rollins and Coltrane. Those things were there. And my father was working in a week. On a weekend, it was sacred for him. He would put his jazz and swing and tango and musette, accordion, Paris music, and so and Spanish stuff. And so, it was like, and me, I was playing, classical, was playing Chopin and Beethoven and Schumann on piano. And so when I started to play the guitar, obviously it was going to be something different. I went to folk music, and that was the only thing that was not available at home, like Bob Dylan and George Brassens and all those people, Paul Simon, Cat Stevens. Those things come from me, not from my sisters. This is Johnny Mitchell. This is a kind of people that came into my life, and so I brought that to our household.
Yeah, that's what, because you have a lot of influences in your music. And I was reading, there's really if somebody asked you, what would you consider your genre? Could you even say, or?
No. I would not even talk about it.
Yeah, oh, yeah, okay, that's good though, because you have so many influences. I know some of the ones I had read were like Wes Montgomery and Doc Watson, Jim Hendrix. There were so many, and
all those people like, and some are playing electric and jazz, and I mean, of course, we live by fragmentations, and we need to put things in boxes and everything. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. There are so many links, so many connections, not only culturally, but geographically, historically. I made a choice. I didn't want to do a style. I could have been a jazz guitar player. I could have played flamenco music. If I was, for instance, growing up in Spain, I would have probably becoming a flamenco guitar player, because I love that music. But I love jazz, and I could have said I want to play jazz only. But in fact, those choices never occurred to me. It didn't come into my life. What came to my life was something that I will name a coincidence. The things that I love. But this is only a door of entrance, and once you step through that door, you arrive into an amazing universe where a lot of things are visible. Sometimes you have to go nearer in order to get closer, to see certain things with more precision. But when you are at a certain space, you have a 360 sort of a vision, and it's amazing, And I, as a musician, I feel also that I need to use different I need to expand my vocabulary in order to express myself, and I will look at those different genres and types, like vocabulary, like different words, in order to sometimes use them, and if possible appropriately, to say something or to show something, and then other things. And I love mixing elements. I love giving the sort of ideas that we all belong into the same world. We are all connected to each other. And I don't believe in races, in different religions, in different languages, in borders. I don't believe in all that stuff. I understand. We have to deal with this. I travel a lot. I go through borders all the time, through immigration, passport, and everything. But deep inside of me, this is my earth. I belong to every country that I visit and have the same respect that I have when I go to America, or to Spain, that I have when I'm in France. It's exactly the same. Everything, every identity, every musician, because I consider that we are all linked together, and this planet is the only one we got when you think of it. So, and we make music, and we all think, and we have philosophies, but they're all linking together. They're all, in fact, talking about the same thing, look from different angles with different words, but they all mean the same. And so musically, we express ourselves, and we create our own vocabularies. We are also improvising. We are expressing moments, spontaneity, feelings, all kinds of different impressions that go through our lives. And I don't feel that I have to name what I do, because what I do is very furtive. This is just a little snapshot of a moment, which I try to organize so that through that moment, it can become something more stagnant, something that is going to stay, that is going to talk to someone else. But I don't need to say, this is what I wanted to do. This is what it is. You know, it is nothing and everything. It is whatever it to be, really.
No, I like that. I like your theory a lot, because I don't like labels, and I appreciate all different kinds of music. And so I was really interested when I read that you don't really have a particular genre, because I was talking to a musician friend of mine quite a while back saying, you know, maybe you should just create your own kind of genre. You don't have to call it anything. But I mean, I never have liked labels, and I've listened to a lot of your music now, and I enjoy writing to it, because it's easier for me to write to music where there is not a lot of singing going on when I'm trying to write. But
I understand.
you also do a little singing too.
Well, it's a different color. I like colors, so singing. I try to express myself. So the voice is one other instrument that I have always with me, even more often than my guitar, because when I drive, when I'm in the street, I can function also with my voice and identify ideas like that. And also, the guitar is a portable instrument. It's light, so you can basically have your voice and guitar everywhere. When I played the piano, it was much harder. But with a guitar, you can transport it. So you can basically amuse yourself everywhere, really. You know, even in airports, waiting for a plane at the gate, I take my guitar and quietly I practice, and sometimes people come and start sitting around me, and they listen, and I love that. I love to not be noticed. You know, I love playing in a situation when people are doing their things and I'm playing. And I'm just part of the tapestry, you know.
Yeah.
The music is just part of it, and in fact, what I see inspires the music, and sometimes the music is the sound of what I see, you know, with the things around me, and I'm playing that music, and I see today the music is in fact the soundtrack of what I'm seeing today, and it's always interesting because very often it fits very well, you know. What did I want to say? Anyway, yeah.
No, I like that, because I like what you said about, when you go to a different country or in people, there should not be different religions. We're all one. Because I write a lot about my dream is for people to unite more, and not, and it's okay that we're different. We just should be together and enjoy the world together. And I really like how you worded that. I think that's important, and I'm glad that your music does not have a label.
But you know, Tamarah, yet at the end of the day, you still need to recognize where people come from.
Yeah.
And you know, and to value and valorize and also respect their entrance.
Yeah.
You know, what moves them and why. So I think it's important, as a matter of respect, to also be aware and to know as much as possible where they come from, and to try to. So I try to study that as well. I'm very interested in religions. I'm very interested in different philosophies and languages as well. And I love playing with words, and I love sometimes looking at the etymology of a word to see how this word travel, and how the people brought that word, and where did they go through. And sometimes words are linking together. Like in Europe, we have a lot of different languages, but a lot of our languages are connected together through Celtic, Arabic, Latin, Greek, Saxon, and you name it. And so that means also that through those words, there have been people, lives, generations of people traveling, moving, making their life and experiences, building, creating families, evolving, and creating what we are today. So, you know, when people ask me, where do you come from? I say, that's a very interesting story. I'm French. And of course, the fact of being French determines a certain sensitivity, a certain culture, a way of reading French. The ideas that go through French are going to be probably vehicled differently that writers, American writers, English writers, German writers, Italian writers, Spanish writers, Portuguese writers, because their language and their way of thinking is a bit different. So I think it's very, very interesting to try to understand other people, how they think, and why do they think like this? And the same for music. This is what fascinates me when I hear music from Brazil or from another culture. I'm so fascinated to see how the people, why do they play what they play? How did it come to them? What kind of sensitivity determines that kind of sound and approach and expression? It's me, and that's why I feel that even more in that when I think like that, I realize that I'm not belonging to a type. I'm not belonging to a set of population. I'm like pretty much freelance, if I may use that expression. I like a bit of like a traveler, and I go to visit people, and I sort of taste their water and taste their food and take their expression and inspire myself with all of that stuff, and that goes into the music I play.
Oh, that's fascinating. I mean, I love your attitude and the way you feel about that. I think that's great. And traveling, I mean, I think that gives you that kind of open-mindedness for sure, because you've seen so much, you know, in so many different cultures. Now, how many languages do you speak?
A lot, very badly, but mostly 2, French and English, and a bit of Spanish, a bit of Italian, a bit of German. You know, that's pretty much it. But I know a few words in Arabic, a few words in Chinese, a few words in Hebrew, you know, because when I go to a country, I imagine how wonderful it will be to speak the language of the people I visit, but I don't stay long enough so to justify that investment in efforts and time. And when I come home, then I'm in a different mindset. So, but when I'm there, you know, very often I try to learn words. You know, I listen to the music of the language. Sometimes I even dream about that music. And sometimes I even incorporate those sounds into the music, like to see how it can change things around.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I wanted to ask you this because I like to ask a lot of people this question. In your early part of your career, did you have a mentor when you started out? And do you have someone today that, like, you know, a go-to person? I don't know.
probably my first mentor was, sometimes you have a mentor, but you are not aware that you have one. You don't know you have one. But I think my first mentor was my piano teacher. As I said, she was inspiring me. She was sort of suggesting that I should not fail, that I would not fail, that as long as I respect the music, the sound, the instrument, I would be on a good side of the road. And she gave me this sort of notion of the very, very unique place of music in my life. I was not aware of it, but she made me more and more gradually realize how important it was. My first mentor was probably, I would say, my parents, but my family, the people you live with, you play for them. And even if you don't play for them, when you play, they hear you, because we were living in a small apartment. So, of course, I could not pretend that, I was closing my doors and I was crazy and doing all my things, but they were, in fact, listening to everything. They were hearing everything. But what's funny is that whenever I open the door, I go and share and be, socialize with everyone, and they would pretend like, once in a while a little comment, oh, it was what nice song, nice this, that, but it's still very private, so as long as you can give the impression that it remains private and that people around you respect that, even if it's not true, it's okay. And so I think the first very, very great emotion I had with music, from what I remember, was listening to Beethoven, to the Moonlight Sonata. And we had a LP by Arthur Rubinstein playing. And this was the time when my parents offered me my first turntable. And, it was like later on my bicycle and later on my first car. My first turntable was the beginning of freedom. It was like flying. I remember listening to my LPs, or to not only mine, but LPs that we had at home. And we had Rubinstein playing Moonlight Sonata. We had Georgi Xifra playing the Polonaise by Chopin. And we had also Narciso Yepes playing Forbidden Games on guitar. And that was the first guitar album I've heard. And I loved that music. And I didn't know, when I took the guitar and tried to teach myself, I had no idea of tuning songs. And so a friend of mine came and helped me to tune to put the strings back on. And then he tuned them, but he didn't know how to tell me to tune. So he didn't think of telling me how to tune. So very, very soon the guitar was completely out of tune. And so I said, how do I know how to tune a guitar? And so I listened to that record by Narciso Yepes, and he was a 10-string guitar player, but there he was playing only 6 strings, and he was playing the soundtrack of the beautiful black and white movie called Jeux Interdits, Forbidden Game, about those 2 children who are orphans. Their parents died during a bombing in France, and there's this big H people roads flying the German army coming. And so this music, it was very beautiful. Of course, I didn't know that it was a kind of tune of guitar that you have to play when you play the guitar. Of course, I had no idea, but I understand why. It's very beautiful. So I taught myself how to play that tune, and through that tune, I sort of realized how to tune a guitar, the standard tuning. And so I had the impression that I had made progresses like this, but I was just on my own. I didn't want to take any lesson. I had my piano teacher, and after her, I said, she will be my only teacher. I don't want to have another teacher. Of course, since then, I had many teachers, friends, other musicians that I admire. They are teachers, they are guides, they are mentors. People I've played with, like Bill Keith, like Bobby Thomas, like Didier Malherbe, and I name those people are also mentors, are very big inspiration, and they're a big stimulator. They emulate the best, So, but I realize when you are self-taught, you can do a lot of things. You make a lot of mistakes. You lose time, obviously. You don't learn things properly, but you learn how to go to what seems to you being the essential of you, and you go there straight. And there is no one to say yes, no, you should do this or you should not do that. And so you make your own agenda. You determine your own rules, and you also sometimes go out of the boundaries without even knowing that you are, and you look at things differently, and you restitute that in a unique way that someone else would have not thought about it. So sometimes you have less vocabulary, you have less education, less academic education, but you have more freedom, and in fact probably more to say. I don't know.
No, I agree. I think I've always heard that some of the greatest artists in any type of form of art are self-taught, and that's probably why, because you do push the boundaries more, I think, because if you're learning yourself, you do make mistakes, and you don't know what you're doing, but you'll do something that maybe before someone would said you can't do this,
But at the same time, sometimes I regret to not have received a formal education. I think at the end of the day, being self-taught or not, this is not what counts. What counts is that you try to follow an internal guideline, and if you receive a lot of information, that's even better, as long as you don't lose yourself in that process. Sometimes people have lost their personality, they have lost their initial intention and ideas, information coming, and then it's very difficult in the jungle of information to find your way again. But if you can keep your road, intact, then all this information, you can really use it for good sake. And so I did receive a lot of information, but it was later in my life. Like I had to revisit my way of playing, because obviously I was not using my technique at a better, I could use a better potential with my technique, my left hand, my right hand, the way I was perceiving the sound, the tone, and all those things. But all those things become they become second nature when you live your life in music. You start receiving the answers to the questions that you ask by experience, by just being immersed into it and doing it.
Right. I agree. And one thing that I was really amazed at is you were so young when I wanted you to tell that story, because you were only 17 when you recorded your first CD, and you actually
LP,
yeah, that's
there
right.
was no CD then.
And I think, you won an award, but you also got to meet. Was that the one that you won? You won an award. The Prix de Paris. Is that right? That was your first one?
Près de Paris, near Paris, it means near Paris.
Yeah, and you also got to meet your idol from that. Can you tell that story a little? Because you don't get to meet their idol,
I was living with my parents and my sisters in the west suburb of Paris, and I was, already playing quite a lot. When I was 16, I quit school, and I wanted to be a full-time musician. So I was not in agreement with school for some reason. It was not my place to be. So anyway, at 16, I quit school, and then I played music full-time. And I also wanted to show my parents that I could make a bit of money with it. I had to prove them, because my mother was extremely against the idea of quitting school. She was a mathematics teacher, and so she could not understand that I will, just end my studies. She was, in fact, totally bummed by that. So I had to sort of show her that it was possible. And so I also realized that I could not, in order to make a living, do another job which had nothing to do with music. I had to stay in music and generate all my incomes from playing music. So the first thing I did in order to make a bit of money was to teach the very little I knew Two people who knew even less than I did. and 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 that's funny because that taught me things. I don't think I was a very good teacher, but I was very enthusiastic. I could be very brutal and also very enthusiastic and very stimulating. But when I remember when someone had difficulty, I was not really interested. I was a horrible teacher in that respect. I was not a teacher. I was just a teenager showing things and and but I was playing a lot, and I was starting to play live, to do a few concerts here and there, to play in open mic things, and one day I got noticed. I got noticed by someone creating a new, brand new record label specialized in folk music. It was in Paris. That label was called Sesame. And so I received a phone call once, and they had been introduced to me by a journalist who was having a little folk kind of folk music, little gazette, And they said, we are creating a new label. We are founding this new record label, and we'd like to see you. Are you playing anywhere live? I said, yes, I'm playing, as a matter of fact, next week in the suburbs, this art center. And so they came, and we met, and they said, we will call you soon. And I sort of said, okay, yes, this is what people say. We'll call you. Thank you very much. But they did call me. They called me a few days later, and they said, we want to sign you.
Wow.
I was like, not even, I was like 17 or late 16th. And so they gave me a contract, and my parents look at that contract and they say, we need a lawyer. And so I said, oh, wow, that's serious, huh? Yeah, of course, we need a lawyer. You cannot sign anything like this. You have to be very cautious and everything. And so we asked a few advice to someone who knew a little bit. And so I signed my first contract. It was a contract with 3 albums with Sesame record in Paris. And the first record, Près de Paris, won that award 1 year later after it was released at the Montreux Festival in Switzerland. Montreux is on the Lake of Geneva. And of course, this is the name of a very famous jazz festival. But also, at that time, they had 4 days of folk music and 4 days of punk music in Montreux. Can you believe that? Montreux, not many people know that Montreux has also been a punk festival for 4 days and a folk festival for 4 days. So my record got awarded for the best folk album of the year. And it's also related to the fact that
you broke up a little. You broke up a little bit.
I was saying that the first country where I really toured was Switzerland. There was a big network of folk clubs there, so I played a lot. I was 18 when I started to tour in Switzerland, and I just had my driving license. And so the award was, in fact, the jury of that award was determined by a lot of those folk clubs owners who got together and decided to give it to me. But before I toured as a sideman for Bill Keith, the banjo player, as a mandolin player, and I play bluegrass music, which you know because you are in North Carolina. So this is a very famous music in North Carolina. And so bluegrass was also a big part of my life for a while. I was a very heavy bluegrass musician, and I was a big fan of all those different bands from Virginia, North Carolina, all the Southeast, and Kentucky, Tennessee. So I was a big fan, and one day with Bill, we even met Bill Monroe, the founder of bluegrass music. I shook the hand of Bill Monroe, and I will never forget that. I mean, I saw him, and Bill introduced me. He says, "This is a young fan of yours, Bill." And Bill said, "What's your name? What's your name?" And I said, "My name is Pierre." "Oh, you are from France," and whatever, But to me, meeting Bill Monroe was like meeting God. He was a living God. And so I was very young, and also I think I've been evolving in a sort of parallel world where I was fan of people who later in my life became my peers. They became friends. Some of them became very good friends, like we are family members now. And so And I owe a lot to Bill Keys, who passed away 2 years ago. He was a fantastic banjo player. So through him, we toured in Belgium, in Germany, in France, in Switzerland together. And when Bill heard me play guitar, because I was playing mandolin with him, but when he heard me play guitar, he said, I want you to play solo guitars in my concerts. You will start the second set on your own. You play 3 solo numbers. And I did those 3 solo numbers, and it was so successful that all the promoters of those shows invited me on my own the year after. That was the end of my bluegrass career, I'm afraid.
But you played a couple. You played some when you started to come to America. You played at the Prism. Is that what it was up in Charlottesville?
Right, I've been playing the Prism quite a lot. You know, that club is now back on. They just resumed the new Prism again. I think it was a couple of years ago. But for about 15 years, I played the Prism on and off. We had 2 shows, one show in English and one show in French. And so because it was a Charlottesville university town, the show in French, I could not say a word of English. I had to present in French. I had to speak French. People were talking to me in French. I was singing in French. And so that became sort of a tradition that we did in Charlottesville. And in fact, those shows were recorded by the radio there, the university radio. I don't remember the name of it. It starts with a K. And when I saw Peter Jones, the director of the folk program of the radio, I said, Peter, I know that we have been recording all those shows. You know, I'm putting together a live album to celebrate my 40th anniversary as a touring musician. Do you think I could have access to those recordings? And he said, oh, there are a lot of those. Give me some time and I will put together a packet for you and I will send it to you. And he sent me 16 CDs. Wow. About like 5 months later, you know, he sent me those CDs and I heard those, and a third of the content of the CDs, a third of the content of my live album comes from those recordings. Yeah.
Goodness. But now you met Doc Watson sought you out to meet you, right?
In fact, I met Doc Watson because his manager was my first US manager. Okay. Manny Greenhill, and Manny Greenhill had founded the agency called Folklore Production. First of all, they were based in Boston on Harvard Square, and they created the first folk club called the Club 48. And John Baez was one of the first person to play in that folk club, and her manager was Manny Greenhill. He was a very good friend of our parents. And so he was managing John Baez for 17 years. He created the first folk club. He created the first folk festival, the Newport Folk Festival in Rhode Island. And he had his agency called Folklore Production. So they had Doc Watson, they had Pete Seeger, they had Taj Mahal, they had Mississippi, God, I have a blank. I have a blank. It could come later, but they had a lot of blues artists, Reverend Gary Davis, Mississippi John Hurt, and a lot of other people. They had also John Rainbow from England. And so Manny became my first manager. He heard of me through Doc Watson. Doc Watson heard my first record, Près de Paris, and became a very big fan. When he played in Paris once, he wanted to meet me. So I went to meet another god, you know. I went to meet him after the show. And of course, he's a blind man. And he says to me, oh, I'm so happy to see you. And for me, it was like, wow, that's interesting. That's very strange. Blind people perceive life like this. He told me a lot that day. Of course, he sees, you know. He sees differently, but he sees. Yeah. And then it was a complete coincidence that his manager became my manager. But at the end of my first American tour back in '79, Manny told me, Doc is playing in Paris in June. Would you like to open for him? I said, oh, that would be fantastic. So I opened for Doc Watson in Paris in this big theater called the Olympia Theater, where my father and I were going when I was, you know, a teenager. We were going to see a lot of pop music. And so here I am on the same stage playing before Doc Watson. And then I met with Doc several other times, and I also opened for him in Baltimore years after, before he passed away.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, Doc Watson is another legend, and I grew up listening to him, and he was part of my he's part of my heritage, you know, definitely.
Oh yeah, but and I also heard, and your wasn't your sister instrumental in getting you into the States?
Yeah, in fact, yeah, that's funny because I had met Manny Greenhill at this Olympia Theater when I went to hear Doc Watson play. The first time that Doc wanted to meet with me. And I brought several Près de Paris albums with me. I gave one to Doc. I gave one to his manager who was there. I didn't know him, but I gave one to him. And then bye-bye, everybody. And then I felt that I wanted to go and visit America. I wanted to spend some time. Didn't know how long, but I would. My project was to travel in America and to meet people. I had no idea how and when, but I just had this idea that maybe I could play a little bit to pay for my travel, for my expense, maybe buy a car, a second-hand car, and travel. And I was 19. And so my sister was doing a thesis about American minorities. So she was spending like a couple of months on the East Coast, and then she went to the West Coast. She went to LA. And I don't know how that happened, but because she was French, she was invited to this radio program. And they started to ask her about what she was doing here, and what about French cooking, and does she have any recipe? And then off the mic after the broadcast, she speaks about me, about her brother who is performing in France and is trying to come to America. And the woman of the radio says, "Oh, you should contact Manny Greenhill. He has his agency just next door." So that's amazing, the coincidence. So she calls Manny Greenhill, and Manny remembers meeting me in Paris, and he said, "Oh, Pierre wants to come to tour in America. I will be his manager." This is how it happened for me. It was too easy, you know, like completely, you know, completely natural. So here I am, I speak with Manny, and I said, "So Manny, my intention is to play a few shows, you know, make a little bit of money. You know, I'm not begging for nothing. In fact, whatever you can find me, I would be very pleased. And I'm going to buy a car. I'm going to visit America. It's going to be amazing. And I'm going to meet musicians. Maybe I can meet with Doc. What do you think?" And Manny listens to me, and he's saying, "Okay, I see what I can do, Pierre. Okay." And a few months later, he calls me back and said, "Pierre, I have found 33 shows for you."
Wow.
33 shows. And so I cannot really tell you how excited I was. But he said, "Now the difficulty is to be able to get you a working visa to come and play and work in this country." Manny used to be a lawyer, so he goes, and on the first he's applying, and it is denied. They don't want this French musician who come and steal the work of American musicians. Why do we need French musicians? We have enough musicians in America. You French people, you can stay home. You don't have to come here. If you can come, you know, if you want to be a tourist, you can come. And I certainly didn't want to take the chance to work as a tourist on a tourist visa, you know. I like to do things right. And so Manny says, the problem is that the tour is starting very soon, and we have to go in appeal. So I hope it's going to be judged, you know, positively in appeal. So we go to appeal, and in appeal, is asking some of his people, like Pete Seeger and John Baez, to listen to Près de Paris, to my first album, and to just write what they feel. And so they listen and write a letter. And with that letter, Manny's go to appeal. And in appeal, I get my working visa, thanks to Pete Seeger and John Baez.
Wow.
So that's how it happened for me. And so years later, like 15 years later, I'm here with my wife having lunch into the green room of this folk festival in Vermont, in Champlain Folk Festival. Pete Seeger is invited. And here we are, myself, my wife, in this big tent, just alone. It's 3 in the afternoon. We are having lunch. We see this couple from far away coming in our direction and sitting right next to us. They had so much room everywhere, but they choose our table, and it was Pete Seeger and his wife. They sit next to us, and I'm looking at my wife, and I cannot say a word. I'm totally tetanized to see Pete Seeger. And Pete, know, and he says, you know, hello, 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 hello. And then we eat, and all of a sudden he looks at me and he calls me by my name. He says, Pierre, it's very important to have artists like yourself. You have to keep on doing what you do. That's all what he told me. And I said, thank you so much. I'm very, very touched and moved. I'm very humbled. And I want to take that opportunity finally to thank you, because it's thanks to you that I got my working visa. And he sort of remembered vaguely, you know, but
Yeah.
he said, yeah, it's all well deserved. He said, yeah, so it's funny because that's another story. You know, I used to go to bed when I was 15, 14, listening to Pete Seeger, that live record in Carnegie Hall, where as soon as he starts singing, you have like 1,500 people joining him and singing with him from the beginning till the end of the song. And I listened to that record as loop, you know, and all of a sudden it's like on my table, we are having lunch together and he's telling me what he told me. This is amazing, you know.
That is amazing. You've got an amazing story. Now, when the first time you performed in America, what was it like? What was going through your head? I mean, how is it different?
Well, it was a time of vinyls, and I had made 3 vinyls with Sesame Records. So we had those albums. I remember asking my record label to send me 800 vinyls to America. Thanks to Bill Keith, I buy a second-hand Dodge Dart car, purple with a white roof.
Is that the one? There's a picture of you with a big car.
Probably, I don't know. No, maybe no, that one, because unfortunately there is no picture of that car in me, and I regret, because it was a fantastic car. I slept in my car. I smell like my car after a while, you know. But I wanted to travel in America, and I did travel. I drove for 3 months. I drove like you cannot even imagine. I started to feel like France was a so very tiny, small country, and I toured. I started to my first show in Boston. At the university, and then I played in a folk club called Passim, and I went from there. I played New York and played 33 shows, and I met friends, met musicians, sold all my records, 800 records that I had with me. I sold them all, and from then on, America started to become a very, very important place for me to present my work. And since 1979 until today, I've never stopped to tour in that country.
Wow, well, that's great. That's great. I think that I'm so glad that you got that visa and that I worked out. That's pretty amazing. That was meant to happen. Sure.
When I think of it, it's quite amazing. I don't know. Today the world is a completely different place. The way we market ourselves, the way we present what we do is very different. It's easier and harder. There are a lot of people on the market, but we have also social networks. We have, like what we are doing now. It was like science fiction, like 30 years ago. Could not even imagine doing that. It was amazing. But the word of mouth was very important. For some reason, the shows were very well attended. People were calling, people were visiting and coming together. And it was a time when America was sort of very, very eager of their roots. People were sort of, looking introspectively into their European roots, African roots. And so people were always curious to see a European guy.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Do you have time for a couple more?
Friends, coming to. What do you say?
Yeah, keep talking.
I cannot hear you anymore. Okay. For me, I when I was in the South, for instance, when I was in North Carolina, I realized the tension between the communities, and it was something. All of a sudden, it took me back to Algeria, where I felt the tensions between the Arabic community and the French community, the Jewish community. And all of a sudden, I look at myself like white. And all of a sudden, I realize I'm white. And it was the first time. And it taught me something there. It was like, oh, man, people look at you not because you are French. They look at you because you're white.
Yeah.
And that never really happened. And that got me to think. Also, the people I was staying with asked me, "So, Pierre, you are from France. What language are they talking in French, in France?" And I thought the person was joking. I said, You must be joking. We're talking French, of course." "Oh, French? Can you speak French to us? What is this?" And you know, when you don't know the places you are visiting, you can judge people very, very wrongly. You
Yeah.
can judge, to start with, you can judge people, which is very bad. But you can judge, you can be ignorant by assuming things. And so by visiting those people, I started to realize, where those people came from and why they were asking me this. Of course, France was very removed from them. It was like so far away. Why would they know what language we speak? How do I know what language you speak in some very obscure place of Africa?
Oh,
No, I
yeah.
won't. But people there, if I ask that question, they would look at me like I'm a dummy, stupid, ignorant guy. So it's so relative, like Albert used to say, and you have to remember that when you
Yeah.
visit the world.
Yeah, you do. I wanted you to have time to talk about your latest CD, but do you still have time for a couple more questions or?
Sure, of
Okay.
course.
Okay, because you mentioned in an interview when you were talking about your encore CD that when someone presented the idea to you, you were a little bit fearful because it's your live concerts and you really you never listen to your live concerts afterwards.
That's true. It's
Yeah,
done. It's done. Why listening to it? It's past. And I might be disappointed and say there is not much I can do about it because it's done. So there is a bit of a fatality there that I don't really go for, and that's why I don't listen to it. I'm afraid to be extremely embarrassed. But when I decided to put together that live album, it was because I've been spending 40 years touring, and I didn't really have a live record. And a lot about my reality was to be a live musician. So I should at least have something like this, not only for myself, but for people who wanted to have a testimony of a concert. And so I took advantage of a period of 4 or 5 months off the road to revisit all those tapes. And so I listened to all the tapes from Charlottesville, the Prism concerts, and also other concerts. And yet sometimes I was very, very, while I was listening to, I didn't like it, and I thought it was horrible, and I didn't play very well, and I made mistakes and everything. But at some of the moments, I was totally blown away by the music. I was blown away by the music. All of a sudden, I was not listening to me. I was listening to music. You see, when you look at yourself, when you listen to yourself, it's because something is distracting and it goes back to your ego. But when the music goes through, you forget yourself. There is no more ego anymore. You are in presence of music. And then I was very pleased that those concerts were there recorded. And so that gave me the incitement to keep on looking for at least what I could put together for one CD. I was hoping to have enough material for one CD, and I realized that I had plenty of material, so I decided to go for a triple live record. That's how it came about. And so I did that. We found I have a distributor. I don't have any more record label in America. I even in the world, I created my own record label called That Music, and I have a very good distribution in the States, MVD, based in Pennsylvania. So we put together that record, and someone out of the blue from the IMA contact me and say, "We heard something. You should absolutely apply for our awards." So I did, and people voted for that record. So
yeah.
I won the award for best live record of that category. So I was very pleased, of course.
So you're glad you did it, but you know what you did? Don't you think you're the only one that hears all the mistakes, being critical of yourself, or?
I didn't understand the question because you were cut. Can you rephrase it, please?
Sure, yeah. When you said you hated listening to the recordings of your live concerts because you'd hear the mistakes, but don't you think other people don't notice it like you do?
Yeah, but it's not a good reason enough. I never assume that people don't hear, you know. I assume that people hear everything and feel everything. If I can, then other people do, you know. But you know, it's not about perfection, because sometimes something is not perfect, but it tells something. It vehicles something. So it has to be good enough, but it has to vehicle an emotion, so that what you listen to takes you away. And sometimes it's not perfectly executed, but it's okay. And some of the time it's very well played, and that's even better. So,
Yeah,
but that's what we're looking for. But you know, being on the road, some shows are very special. Sometimes I have the impression that I didn't do a good job, and I listen to the concert and all the music is there. It's amazing. And some of the times I felt like, wow, tonight it was very special, and I listened and I went over the top. The balance is very vulnerable. And the music, in fact, what makes the music stand sometimes has very less to do, very little to do with how you feel, but it's mostly, it has to do with how you can keep that balance, that how can I say, that perception, that availability to every detail, and yet this distance, so that you don't overdo it. You don't play too many notes. Try to play the good notes. You try to leave the good space. You phrase the way you phrase. But sometimes when I'm tired, I'm on the road, sometimes I didn't sleep well, and I feel, oh, tonight is going to be very difficult. The music still goes through my tired body, and finds a place to be out there, you know. So I try to remember that. I try to remember to respect the music, and to never put my person in the way as much as possible.
yeah. Right. Well, you had a lot of early successes, and you've had a wonderful journey, but I know you've bound to have a lot of challenges, and I wonder for other people who might be watching this, because anytime we're on our journey, it's so easy to get discouraged and quit. How have you stayed charged and positive through the years when you go through those tough times? What helps you get through those times where you feel like you're about to give up?
Um, I'm living through my lifetime, and it is my lifetime. It doesn't belong to anyone else. It is my story and my life. So I'm, as anyone else, I'm entitled to own it, and I'm entitled, and I'm authorized to try to do my best through this lifetime, as long as I can respect the other elements and other people, and as long as I can keep that very clear vision of where I stand in the chain, in the human chain. Yeah. Um, Sometimes if I start to compare myself with other musicians, I feel, why should I play? There is so much beautiful music out there. Why do I need me to bring my own sound to this? It's already so beautiful and perfect. Then I'm thinking, it's because you feel like doing it. And if you feel like doing it, it's because it's something genuinely deep and essential for you. Do this, you don't go through your life to process what is important for you. Then you don't go. Then you don't fulfill what you don't deliver what you are there to deliver. So that gives me the stimulation, the encouragement, the inspiration to go through this. And yet, once I'm there, then it's about working. It's about, you know, spending as much time as possible with my guitar, so that I forget that I have a guitar in my hands. It's about writing music. I love those moments in between tours when I'm alone in my, like here in my house, and take my guitar from 6 in the morning until 8 until 8 at night, and I'm writing, I'm playing, and I'm always thinking to the future audience. I'm always thinking that this music one day will be shared and heard by people. And this is, I'm very lucky, grateful and lucky so that I know there are people out there who would listen to it. I don't know how many, but that's okay. It's about, the it's not about the quantity, although quantity helps, but it's not about that. It's about having people who are going to listen to what I have to offer to them, what I have to share with, and I'm doing it. That helps me to really to keep on doing it. And those people are encouraging me. I feel their presence on my side, their support, like an amazing encouragement. That's why. So when I touch the ground, sometimes I think about that, and I go up again, and I trust the music. I trust the music. The music is not owned by me. The music is something that I borrow from. It is a form. It is an abstraction that I can see and that I can all of a sudden get closer to. And it's like me asking her, can we be friends again? And she says, of course, I have always been your friend. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that's enough for me. That's enough for me. If the music is my friend, then why should I not trust her?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's great.
That's it.
So the way you do it too is just keep doing it because it's the right thing. It's your thing, and you pull from your own passion for it. But I think that's good, because I think a lot of people can get discouraged, and if they can keep pushing through knowing that it's what they're supposed to do, like you said. And
it's about a big dive. You need to dive. You need to dive in your own thing, and you need to not be afraid of what you're going to see.
Yeah.
You need to dive. You have to dive very deep.
Yeah.
You know? And so sometimes we are afraid of diving. Sometimes we are afraid of jumping. We're afraid of the white page. It's like, oh my God, this is white. I have to feel that. No, you don't have to. No one forces you. You don't have to. You need to want to. You need to have pleasure to do it. Find the pleasure. Go through that door from a pleasant point of view, from a ludic point of view, a playground. We play music. We don't work music. We play.
Play. Yeah.
And so you have to remember the words are there for a reason. In Spanish, they say, we touch the guitar. And I love that. I take the guitar. No, you don't take the guitar. You touch the guitar. You don't play the guitar. You touch it. So your digital approach to the instrument is going to be the world, you know. And you play because you try to remember the child within you. And children, they play. They don't look, they don't project themselves in the future. They don't think they're going to fail. They don't think, oh my God, I'm not good enough. They just do it.
Yeah.
And so we need to remember that quality in ourselves. We need to be like that, in fact. We need to continue to be spontaneous and not want to prove anything, you know, just to be.
Yeah, just be. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Now, you won so many awards. What would you say has been your most proud moment or achievement?
My next record. My next album, the one I'm working on right now. I'm writing, and some of this music, I've been carrying it like for almost more than 30 years sometimes. Wow. And so this music has been staying with me, and now this music says, I want to go out. Take me out. I want to see the world. I'm tired to be within you. I want to go out. So yeah, I'm going to take this music out. So I'm giving a good piece of attention to those pieces. And so that will be, I think that will be my best record to come. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Is there a dream place, Pierre, that you would like to perform that you haven't yet? Do you have a dream?
No.
No.
I mean, I have dreams, but my dreams, I don't think my dreams will be. I don't think we are supposed to live our dreams.
Okay.
They should remain dreams. Life. Okay. Reality and dreams are two different things, and they inspire each other. There's two parallel worlds, you know. Sometimes a dream is sort of an emanation of the reality, and sometimes in the reality you remember a dream, but it's difficult to say. I just, you know, my intention is very simple. I'm trying to express myself as a musician, and I'm trying to play what I hear. It is very difficult, very challenging, but it is extremely rewarding. That's what I do. That's my journey.
That's great. Great. So are your fans that give you the greatest reward of what you do when someone purchases something or see you live? Is that your greatest satisfaction? Or
yeah, it is. Absolutely. After a show, when people come to me and say thank you for the music, thank you for the evening we spent with you. We have been listening to you for the last 30 years, and our children grow up listening to you, things like that. All of a sudden, I remember that the music is going around, and it is meaningful for people, as it has been meaningful for me. Other music that I listen to have been very important for me. And all of a sudden, I find myself playing that same role for other people. So that gives me a very good sentiment, a sentiment of presence, of and humility as well,
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm just another guy helping other people. So I think we are there to help each other. So that's my way to help the world.
Yeah, that's wonderful. One last question. What great advice would you give to someone who might be watching this? Maybe they're new in their career as a musician, or maybe they've been on their journey a while and they're not where they want to be. What would be your greatest advice, do you think?
Well, to be confident in yourself, to be tenacious, perseverant, and to listen carefully, and to forget about yourself.
That's good advice. That's good advice. Yeah. Well, Pierre, I've really enjoyed having you here today. I know you're busy, and I was trying not to keep.
I'm writing music at the moment, so I'm thinking about the next move in what I'm writing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you so much for allowing me and for your invitation.
Yeah. Is there anything you wanted to announce or add today before I say goodbye to the viewers? Is there anything else?
I'm not touring a lot this year. In 2018, it's going to be mostly staying home and writing on this new album, writing music and playing, playing my guitar and just touring, but not a lot. I'm going to Germany next month to play 7 shows. I will play a little bit in England, but next year I will tour a lot. I hope to have my record ready for the fall, to come out in the fall, and then I will start touring in America, Australia, China, Europe in 2019 and 20. So
yeah, I want to know when you're back. I want to know when you're back my way. I want to see you. I do. That would be wonderful.
I will let you know. I will make sure to invite you to a show in North Carolina. I often play in Charlotte, and sometimes in Wilmington as well, and sometimes in Boone, as well.
Wow.
And also where it was not in North Carolina, Asheville.
Okay.
And Johnson City, which is close to the border with North Carolina. So I will let you know.
Yeah. Do.
Thank you so much, Tamarah.
Yeah. Don't hang. Let me say bye to the viewers before. Don't leave me yet. I want to thank the viewers for being here, and thanks again for your continued support. Pierre is on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. His website is pierrebensusan.com. You can see the replay of this in my YouTube channel, Tamarah's Closet. There'll also be a copy at tamarahscloset.com. So thanks for your continued support. Make sure you share this replay so I can continue to celebrate this talented man. And stay tuned to Tamarah's Closet for more live interviews to come. Wildflower says, hey, and to your own success, just keep on rocking it. Thanks.